to chapter 1, the keys to managing, the keys to passing the management case study. Okay, so as I said, this is a case study exam, and you've already gone through and passed your prior management level exams, so you've demonstrated a lot of the knowledge that CIMA are after. So what we're really wanting to find out now is, can you strategically analyze a company? Can you apply technical skills? And when we're talking about the technical skills, you have demonstrated them already to a certain extent through the objective testings. Can you identify the requirements? Because this case study, it won't give you an exact question. You need to be looking and saying, well, what exactly is it that they want here? And pulling that out yourself. You'll then be asked to determine whether you can write a professional report or not, and can you meet deadlines. In the real world of a professional accountant, we have very tight deadlines to meet, and that's reflected in the management case study in the fact that there are very tight deadlines for writing the reports. It's very, very time pressured. Okay, so just out of those, take a little moment yourself and think about which you think is the most important. What's the most important aspect on that slide? Okay, I know we're on an intimate group today, but let's see, Jason, what would you think would be the most important aspect here? If you want to type it up in your text box there. Okay, right. Well, we think and we say, well, we have had our technical skills identified. You've gone with identify the requirements. I can see why you've gone with that, and it's a good answer, because if you don't identify the requirements properly, how can you answer the question? How can you do a professional report? And even if you do it within the deadline, the time scale, you're not going to be answering it correctly. So very good, but what I would actually say is it's a bit of a trick question, because it's all about you, okay? It's not whether I can strategically analyze the company. It's not what my technical skills are like or how I can do it, or whether we've got the a good textbook that helps us with our technical skills. It's all about you, and we can help you. You know, the video analysis that Astranti puts up will help you analyze the company. The textbook day 2 will help you revise your technical skills. The work we're going to do today will help you identify requirements and will help you write a professional report within the timescales. But it's all down to you. And there's no way that you can pass this exam without putting in a significant amount of effort. Sometimes I saw in the T4 exam that students thought, I've passed all my exams before this, there's no new materials for T4, I'll be able to go in and just get through this exam on my knowledge to date. But despite there being no new materials, case study exams really are difficult, and you really need to invest the time in them. And it's well worth investing the time first go and trying to get through it first time, because it gets you onto that next level that you can start on to the strategic. Okay, so the management case study is a new exam. There has been one sitting of it so far. Unfortunately, we don't have the post-exam guidance report from that sitting yet. It hasn't been published. But as I said, I taught the T4 Part B, the case study exam at strategic level, and the same kind of principles will apply. So let's think about what the examiner has to say from the T4 Part B exam. Okay, so what has the examiner got to say? Candidates often have simply written out their pre-prepared answer. And this happened time and time again whenever I saw people at the start of our classes, whenever they were doing their first mock exam. They said to themselves, well, I've got these 10 or 12 pages all about the company, and they would work out what they think might come up. They would do great financial analysis on the pre-seen materials, and when they went into the exam, they would simply write these out. But it's ludicrous. It's a crazy, crazy thing to do. Can you imagine going into a financial accounting exam and simply writing out a set of pre-prepared accounts? Yes, you might have the formats of them right, but obviously all the numbers are going to be completely wrong. And it's exactly the same with the case study. You're given the pre-seen materials in order to help you set the scene. It's so that you know the background to the organisation. It's so that you don't have to spend the first 2 or 3 hours of the examination finding out about the company. And it's the unseen materials that the examination is based upon. And you must use the unseen materials. Another common comment from the examiner is that students have not prepared clear and well-reasoned recommendations. Okay, you must recommend a course of action. You must recommend what the company should do. Okay, students and people in everyday life like to sit on the fence. And one of the things that I would have done with student scripts is to go through with a highlighter, and whenever they have used the words consider, might, perhaps, maybe, investigate, further in research, all of these words are sitting on the fence. It's not giving a clear recommendation. And the other aspect is that it must be well reasoned. Okay, so if you're saying that the organisation should expand geographically into mainland Europe out of Ireland, you need to give a recommendation why they should do that. They should have looked at the size of the market in France. They should have looked at the logistics as to how they can get their product to France. They should understand all these things and give clear, well-reasoned recommendations. So it's a definite recommendation and there's a basis for it. Sometimes students do not demonstrate technical knowledge or apply it to the company. This is a management accounting exam. Okay? This is about accountancy. Accountancy is a technical subject, and with it being a technical subject, you must apply your technical knowledge. And with it being a case study, it's about applying it to the company. You'll have demonstrated your technical knowledge in your previous tests, and now you must demonstrate that you can apply it in the case study exam. Okay? Ethics. Students have not stated why they consider an issue to have an ethical side to it and explained what that ethical issue was. In the T4 Part B exam, there were a full 10 marks devoted to ethics, and there was to be a separate ethical section in every student's report devoted to that. There's no separate ethical section within the management case study, but there's probably 5 to 10 marks for ethics within it. CIMA are absolutely hot on ethics. They really feel it is important. And as I said, I'm a chartered accountant, and Jason, you maybe recognise this guy, Sean Fitzpatrick. And ethics can have a major negative impact on an entire accountancy body if there is an ethical scandal related to that body. In the Republic of Ireland, we had in 2008 Anglo-Irish Bank, and their chairman, Sean Fitzpatrick, was a chartered accountant. He borrowed €100 million from Anglo-Irish Bank to buy shares in Anglo-Irish Bank in order to boost the share price, which is not the best use of the bank's finances. Now, he knew that whenever the audited accounts were published, this would all come out because the directors' loans would be shown. So what he did was he contacted his friend in another bank and borrowed €100 million from them in order to pay off his director's loan for the week over the year end, and then paid the money back to the third party bank. So that over the date of the year end, his director's loan was reduced right down. Now, Anglo-Irish Bank went to the wall and had debts of billions and billions of euros, and it all came out about Sean Fitzpatrick, the chartered accountant, doing certainly corrupt and possibly fraudulent actions as the head of the bank. This had a massive impact on Chartered Accountants Ireland. And being in the educational side of things, I could see that the numbers of chartered accountants fell. The numbers of new students choosing chartered in Ireland went down as a direct result of this poor press, and the numbers choosing ACCA over it went up. We've managed to kind of turn the tide, as it were, but ethics is critical to the institute, and it's also critical for the success of the companies. And so we must bring ethical issues in, and we must explain why it is an ethical issue. What else has the examiner got to say? A significant proportion of people had not finished the exam, most likely due to poor time management. Now, what they haven't said there is basically every single one of the people who didn't finish the exam will have failed. Because if you don't finish these case studies exams, you will fail, more or less. There is so little chance of you passing if you do not finish the exam. And why do I say that? Well, when we look at how the exam is marked later, you will see that there are roughly 10 marks for integration. Integration is how the report flows. Is it a professional report? Does one section flow into the next? And if you have not finished your exam, you will most likely not have finished section 1, not have finished section 2, not have finished section 3. And so you can say goodbye to all 10 of those integration marks. If you haven't finished the exam, you also are going to lose marks because you haven't completed everything that's been asked to do. So you can say, I've probably lost a minimum of 10 marks through not completing everything that's needed to do. Now, that means that your exam is being marked out of 80%. What is the pass mark in the management case study? The pass mark in the management case study is 60%. So if you're not finishing it, you're hoping to get 60 marks out of 80. That translates as getting 75% in all of the sections. That is phenomenally difficult to do. It's more or less impossible. So if you do not finish each of your sections, there's probably a 98 or 99% chance that you will fail. Okay, so time management is absolutely critical. Okay, right, that's the end of our first little section. So, is there any questions? I'll give a little minute for you to think and to type before we move on. Okay, that's great. What we're going to do now then is go to chapter 2 and the exam. But what I would like to do is look at the March sitting of the management case study. It doesn't matter if you don't have a copy of it in front of you, and I expect you don't, as I didn't tell you to get one in advance. We can look at it in exam on screen, and it's just to get a general feel for the paper. I'm going to have to go to screen sharing mode now, so it may take a few seconds. Well, that's not right. Hold on. Yes, here we are. So, how can I make that? Okay, right. So we have the management level case study from February 2015. And the first thing to notice is that we have variant 1 here. Okay, so every day there is a different case study. So this is one of 5 that is given out each week. So as you're aware, I'm sure, you do the case study on screen. You use a computer and you have no paper with you. So these are the screenshots that you will see whenever you are in the exam. So we've got maximum time allowed is 3 hours. Okay, in the old T4 there was 15 minutes reading time, so it was 3 hours 15. But now it's a straight 3 hours. And when we say it, it's maximum time allowed is 3 hours. I would recommend you take the full 3 hours, but each section has its own timing. So you cannot go back to a section. So if there's 3 sections, you have 1 hour per section. And once that 1 hour is up, you move to the next section. If you move to the next section after 45 minutes, those 15 minutes are gone. You cannot go back and you cannot use them in section 2. So you want to make sure that you use all your time for each section, but that you don't run out of time. So in this one, we had 4 separate sections. You'll have either 3 sections of 1 hour or 4 sections of 45 minutes. In this one, there was 4 of 45 minutes. Now, in the case study, as we said, we have to identify our requirements. So if you're not given a specific requirement, on the case study, you're not given a separate kind of marking scheme. You're not told this part A is worth 4 marks, part B is worth 12 marks, and part C is worth 15 marks, for instance. There is no mark allocation on the question paper. What you have is the time for each section. And CIMA have told us that the times for each section will reflect the marks available for that section. So in this case study, we have 4 sections of 45 minutes, which equates to equal marks for each section. Now, I mentioned earlier that there is this integration category, where it's how well does the report flow, how professionally written is it, does it come across well, and that's worth about 10 marks. Okay, so roughly speaking, you have 10 marks for integration, which will be applied at the end, looking at your answer as a whole. So within each section here, we would have 90 marks divided by 4 is 22.5 marks for each section. Okay? So if once we start on to the exam, we click in and we see these type of screens. So what we will have is that it's the management case study, here you are, that you've got a scratch pad here, which you can click on and you can make some notes. These notes won't be saved, it's just like a piece of rough work paper that you may use. You also have like a laminated sheet of paper, which you have a special wipe clean marker that you can write notes with as well, if you prefer that. You've got a calculator that you may use, and then we've got the pre-seen material. You may also have an extra button here, which will be reference materials. So make sure that you check for reference materials, because these are absolutely critical to your answer. So in this situation, we don't have any reference materials, we simply have the pre-seen. So we've got an email coming in, and the first thing that we want to do is look and see, who is this from? It's from Felicity Bunyan, who's the Group Finance Director. So already we are framing it in our mind that this is from a finance director. So this is from someone who has a good financial background, who we can talk to with technical financial matters, and they will be able to understand it. Okay? So the details aren't really that important here. But we've got all these details, and then at the end, we've got a bit of a requirement. I need you to draft a paper that I can submit to the board. First, please evaluate our contract costing arrangements, paying particular attention to difficulties associated with setting realistic profit targets. Second, how valid is the argument that the subsidiaries are subject to economic forces? Which economic variables should we pay particular attention to? So those are our requirements for section 1. And what you'll see is it also gives us a clue as to how we should structure our answer. Our answers in the case study should have lots of headings, okay? And we've got section 1, subsection 1, subsection 2. Okay, so we'll use that for helping our structure our answer. What you will notice as well is that while we know there's 22.5 marks plus integration for this section, we don't know how many marks are available for bullet point 1 and how many marks are available for bullet point 2. So we have to use our professional judgment when determining how long we should allocate to each of those points. Okay, so that's more difficult than previous exams. We can then move on, and we've got to write our response. Okay, so in this situation, we've been given the heading for an email. I'm not sure exactly if, because there's only been one session, will they always give you this kind of heading, or will you be expected in some instances to put the from and to subject yourself? Okay. What you'll see here is that there is very limited formatting available. So we've got cut, copy, paste, undo, redo, bold, italics, and underline. So you are expected to format your report, but it's not to the same details as you would have in a Word document, for instance. Okay? And again, write your response to Felicity Bunyan's email in the box below. It's a much vaguer requirement that you will be used to from your objective testing. Once you've got your answer completed, you'll click Next. You'll get a warning that you're about to leave this section of the exam. You will not be able to return to it once you have left. Do you want to continue? And that's what I was saying about your time is lost. So you had 45 minutes to complete this section, and you'll see up here there's a little time remaining. Obviously, as when they were doing the screenshots for this, they weren't taking the time to plan and write the answer. They had 39 minutes left. But if you're leaving the section with 10 minutes to go, I would suggest there's something wrong there. You haven't gone into enough detail in your answer. You should really be wanting to make sure you get your answer completed, but to not leave very much time at all at the end. And if there is any time left, and I'm talking seconds here, use it to just take a moment to get your thoughts together, to maybe clear out the thoughts of the last one and go back and to be starting afresh. Don't click next immediately. Use those few seconds as a breathing space, because once you click next, you're straight into the next section and your time remaining starts counting down. There's no in between section that you then click, right, now I want to start section 2. Okay. So I don't think I mentioned in the previous part, you will also have the opportunity that if you want to look back at the pre-scene, it's available to you there. That if you click on this, it will open the pre-scene in a separate window. Now, I would say you should not be doing this. You should not be looking at the pre-scene on exam day. The pre-scene is there to set the scene, and you will have had it for a number of weeks, so you should be completely familiar with it. You will not have the time to refer back to the pre-scene. Okay? Make sure you know it inside out so that there is no requirement for you to refer back. In the exam, there'll maybe be some diagrams, some charts, something like that. And again, you're given the space to reply and put your answer in, and the limited formatting tools. Again, just clicking through, you'll be warned before you leave the section, but you should be using all the time available to you. This next section then isn't an email. Yeah. So in this case, we have been given it's not an email, and we're given a space to write our response. Now, if it's a report, format it as a report. If it's briefing notes, format it as briefing notes. Those will all help get the integration marks that I had talked about already. So our final section in Marches was section 4. And we've see in this instance that we have got reference materials. Have you seen this? There's very little information in the text box because what we need to do is refer to our reference materials. There's only one reference material in this instance, but there could be 1, 2, 3 different documents that we need to look at. So we're given our requirement and we will have an idea about our structure, and then we're reminded that the newspaper article is found by clicking on the reference materials. So when we click on it, we see this photo, and immediately what springs to mind? Ethics. There's probably going to be some ethical issue going on here. So we need to read the materials, obviously, and structure our answer dependent on what has been asked of us in the requirement, but we will probably be bringing ethics into it in some shape or form. And we will look at ethics in more detail later. Also, make sure that you refer to these reference materials in your answer, okay? And in the previous ones, make sure that you refer to the text of the email in your answer. You need not repeating the materials, but referring to them, applying them to the case, okay? Because CIMA wouldn't be giving you these materials if they didn't want you to use them. Okay, so that's us through the March variant 1 case. So what else can we take from that? Yes, that's me back to where I want to be. Okay, so we've had a look at the exam and we can see how it's structured and taken some important notes from that. What about the fact that it's a different exam every day? Well, that seems like it could be unfair. What if one's easier than the other? What if you get the really hard day? That doesn't seem very fair. Well, CIMA have recognised that while they will try and put all 5 exams at the same level, there could be one that is slightly easier or slightly harder than the others. And what they will do is look at the marks of all the students for each day and make sure that they are in line. And whenever you look at a large number of students, because remember it's a worldwide exam, you can use some statistical analysis to take out any bias because of one being harder than the other. So what does that mean for you? Well, what that means for you is that you need to do your best, whether it is an easier one and you go in and think, great, this is very straightforward. I can understand all of this and I can follow it quite easily. I can structure my answers well and I can write a very professional report in reply to it. The problem with that is everyone's probably finding the same thing. And so you need to make sure that you stay focused and keep doing your best. Okay? What if it's one of the more difficult days, or it's the most difficult day of the week? Well, everyone will be in the same boat. And this is the situation where you cannot give up. You must keep going in order to make sure that you give yourself the best chance of passing. And if you are having difficulties, it's more than likely everyone else will be too. Okay. Some experiences of students I had sitting the T4 exam. Emails that I've received on results day. Some very happy, some very sad. Hi Stephen, unfortunately I failed T4, got 47, so only missed out by 3 marks. Was annoyed with myself when I found out because I had pretty much given up 3/4 of the way through the exam, thinking I was doing really awful. So had I continued, I probably could have passed. And this is what I'm getting at if you are finding it hard. Do not give up. It's only 3 hours of your life. Try and make the most of it even if it is a very difficult examination, because you don't know how difficult others are finding it, and you do not want to have this situation where you have a bare feel, but know in your heart, had you kept going to the end, you could have passed. Some other experiences that we can take some learning from. So this student had appeared strong in class, but in one of the final mock before the exam had a catastrophic fail. They came out with 20-odd%, and it was due to their timings. They got stuck on one section and just went on and on and on and on. But there was only a certain number of marks, but they learnt from it. This was about a week before the exam, and they were getting 28% in the mock. But they went away and they said, I cannot do that again. I cannot get my timings wrong. I must keep my timings right. And in the exam, they had a plan. They stuck to the plan time-wise, and they passed well. I had another student who had failed the exam 5 times. 5 times they had failed the T4 and getting progressively lower marks. After going through the course, they got 58%. What had changed it so much? The approach of mocks under exam conditions. Okay? You will be expected to go off and practice mock exams for this case study. If you don't do them under exam conditions, there's not that much point in doing them. This student, on the 5 previous occasions, had been taking an hour here, an hour there, and spending a week completing a case study exam. It was an excellent answer, but it was completely unrealistic to what he was going to be able to do in the examination. Okay? And he didn't seem to learn until he came on a taught course. And you need to do it under exam conditions, because it's the only way that you will be able to get your timings right and to know what is possible during that time frame. Oh, let's get that in a minute. So, we've had a look at the exam and we noted that there's no breakdown of marks available on the exam for us. But we are told by CIMA that overall the marks will be split 39% technical, 24% business skills, 21% people skills, and 16% leadership. Now, that does not mean that section 1 will have 39% technical, 24% business, 21% people, 16% leadership. Section 2 the same, section 3 the same. It's overall. So section 1 might be more focused towards your business skills and have less on the technical. Section 2 could be very technical and have less on the business skills. But there's no breakdown given to you. So you do not know in the exam how many technical skills marks are available within section 1. Okay? You have to use your professional judgment. And you'll probably not sit and try and work out exactly how many marks. You'll just get a feel of this feels a bit more technical than the previous section. Okay? And through planning your answer, you'll hopefully address it. So thinking about technical skills. Well, we're going to have the technical skills from E2, project and relationship management, the technical skills from P2, advanced management accounting, and the technical skills from F2, advanced financial reporting that needs to be demonstrated. Now, pretty much 40% of the paper is down to technical skills. Does that mean that there's going to be major calculations? Are we going to have to draw up an NPV calculation? Are we going to have to draft the consolidation section of a set of financial reports? According to CIMA, no. According to CIMA, they say there is very few technical major calculations in this paper, or no major calculations in this paper. Now, when I read that, I found it very hard to believe. I thought there has to be. It's a management accounting exam with 40% technical skills. There has to be calculations. Now, it turns out I'm completely wrong. Let's have a look again at the CIMA answers from the last case study. Okay, it will just take a few seconds again to move to screen sharing. So here are our examination answers for variant 1. Okay, just see what I want to see. We've got section 1, and I don't see any numbers there at all. Section 2, and I don't see any numbers there either. Section 3, no numbers. Section 4, nope, no numbers again. And so we're through the exam and we haven't had any detailed technical calculations. So what is it that we have to do? How is it technical? Well, if we look at the solution, we can start to see that section 2 is more technically orientated, perhaps. IAS 17 leases would classify this arrangement as a finance lease. The risks and rewards associated with owning this property lie with the government department. We're getting technical stuff here. The service charge is a separate issue. IAS 18 revenue sets out the treatment that we should follow. The future revenues should be fairly easy to determine. So we're using our technical knowledge. We may not be doing a detailed calculation because we've demonstrated that in the last level of testing. What we're doing now is showing that we can take that and apply it to the case study. Okay, if you notice, neither of these have been a write all that you know about leases, write all you know about IAS 18 revenue. It's a relatively short amount, but it is absolutely applied to the case. We need to be applying our technical knowledge to the case. Okay, we move on to section 3 and we're into the balanced scorecard. This is technical knowledge again, okay, but from one of the other papers. So we're looking to demonstrate our technical knowledge here. We have no description about the balanced scorecard, who developed it, its popularity, no background information about it. We are applying it to the case. Okay, so we are applying the balanced scorecard to the case to get our technical marks. Just while I'm here, we'll have a quick look through the solution. Again, as I said, it's not to look at it in detail. So here we see that we're following the same kind of format as the question gave us in the requirements. But in section 1, we had a bullet point asking us about responsibility centres, and then we had another about the economic forces on the subsidiary. So we're following that format and we're giving headings. Okay. What we have also is there is no background to responsibility centres. There's no waffle. There's no giving us the history of them, giving us the theory of it. It's just straight in to applying it to the text. We talk about the economic factors, and there's no backgrounds, okay, to economics. Straight in to how it impacts in this situation. So we're taking our technical knowledge and we're applying it to the business. Now, maybe it's just that particular question didn't have any technical calculations. So let's have a look at the next one. Now, we scroll down. Oh, we've got a question. Great. I notice here that in the answer there is just a repeat of the question in the first paragraph. Is it necessary to write this? I would say no, definitely not necessary to write that. Okay, you will have very tight timescales, and it's hard for me to say because this is the first set of answers for the management case study, but in the strategic level T4 case study, often there was things over and above what you would need to do in an exam situation in the CIMA solutions, because they have the luxury of time. Whoever wrote that does not have to do it within such a tight time frame. Okay, so I would say no, you do not want to be repeating the question. Okay, thanks for the question. As many as you can. I know it's hard. We're having a one-on-one session today. So if you have questions, please do type them in, Jason. Okay, so in this situation, we're not being asked to calculate a net present value, but we're pointing out a number of errors in the assumptions, okay? And we're saying what the impact of those errors could be. Higher cost outcomes are more likely than lower cost. There is some errors in our NPV, and as a result of that, the NPV would have been reduced. If the professional fees had been shown, the NPV would be reduced, okay? We've got other errors pointed out. Apportioned administrative costs are not an incremental cash flow and should not be included. But we haven't actually had to recalculate it, okay? So it's more about identifying errors, saying what they are, saying what the impact will be. That's really enough from the management case study solutions. They're all available on the the CIMA website. So if you wanted, you could have a quick scan through them. I wouldn't say to spend an awful lot of time on them, but it is useful to have a quick look. Right. Back to screen sharing. Just take a moment. Okay, so that was our technical skills. Next, we have business skills. And CIMA say a big area of our business skills is that we apply to the context of the case. Okay? No repetition of theory. We must apply it to the case. And we saw that within the model solutions from the last sitting. Okay, we must use our theory, we must consider the pre-seen, we must consider the unseen, and then we apply it to the actual case. Again, when we looked at the section 1 of the answer, responsibility centres, as I had pointed out when we had it up on screen, there was no background to responsibility centres. There was no talk about the theory of it. It was just applying it to the case. And this is 24% of our exam marks. So our next one is people skills, 21% of the marks. Okay. The people skills relate to stakeholders. Do we consider who our stakeholders are? And remember that there will be internal stakeholders within the organisation and external, and they won't just be the shareholders or customers or suppliers, the local community. Have we considered culture within the organisation? As we know, culture is one of the most difficult things in an organisation to change. It was just an example from my own work. I worked for Invest Northern Ireland for a number of years, which was an economic development agency charged with improving, bringing and giving government support to businesses in Northern Ireland. It was a coming together of two public sector organisations, LEDU, who dealt with small businesses, and IDB, who dealt with large external companies, the likes of Google or Microsoft, and trying to get them to invest in Northern Ireland. When I joined, someone asked me, are you LEDU or IDB? Both organisations had been gone for 6 years, but the people within were still stuck in that culture. I said, neither. I joined Invest. And they said, but are you Invest LEDU or an Invest IDB? Because they just couldn't get that culture changed. We also have to consider ethics. I spoke earlier about how keen CIMA are on ethics and how we need to bring that into our answers and the dire consequences it can have for the institute and the organisation if CIMA qualified management accountants aren't ethical. We need to make sure that we consider our corporate social responsibility and that we communicate well. Okay? So communication, we need to make sure that we have a well-written professional report. But just to go back to the ethics for a moment. Oh no, I'll go to the ethics again a bit later. Okay? So finally, we have our leadership skills, where we need to make clear, logical recommendations. And it's slightly more difficult than it sounds, okay? It's in human nature to not commit, to sit on the fence, to say you could consider, you might want to. One option would be, but what we're looking for is a recommendation saying what you should actually do and that it's logical. But if one of the issues is there's a problem with financing, you're not saying that you should expand your production capacity at a cost of 28 million euros. Okay? Because that's not logical. Because if you have a problem with finance, you're not going to have the money to invest. So we need to make sure that all three sections tie together and that they tie together with both the pre-seen and, more importantly, really, the unseen materials, so that we are making logical recommendations. They fit with what's happening in the economy and they fit with what is happening for this company. Okay? So we really, really need to focus on the pre-seen and the unseen. The pre-seen, just to reiterate, is a scene setter. It sets the context. It gives us an idea of what has been happening in the organisation. We'll perform a strategic analysis on the pre-seen to make sure that we know what's going on in this organisation. And then the unseen materials bring in our new information. They give us the requirements, and it is these that are the basis of our answer. The number of times that I have seen students regurgitate, repeat areas out of the pre-seen, and it scores no marks. I've had to go through with a red pen and put X's through entire pages because they are repeating the pre-seen materials. One of the big favourites of students is to reiterate a history of the company at the start of their report. Solberry is a hotel chain that was founded by so-and-so in 1958. They have grown by 12% a year but for the last 12 years. You're sending this to the finance director of Solberry. He knows that. He does not need you to tell him. He gave you the document with that information in it. So it's like we were saying in the case study solutions. There's no repeat of the pre-seen. There's no repeat of the theory of the technical models you're using. It's the application of it. And we're using the unseen information as the basis of our answer and to tell us our requirements.